Alright guys, today we are going to be learning about the carbon cycle. So to start us off as a warm-up, I passed out a KWL chart to you guys. So what that stands for, we've got know, want to know, and learned. So we're going to start out today by filling out those first two columns, know and want to know. So in know, you're going to write down what you already know about the carbon cycle. And in the want to know, you're going to write down things you want to learn today about the carbon cycle. What you want to find out or any questions you may have. So go ahead and take a couple minutes, jot down some ideas. You can work with each other and talk to each other and just try to get some initial thoughts about the carbon cycle.
Is there anything you know about carbon?
I know that all organisms are carbon-based.
Okay. I'm gonna write that on my paper.
What do you want to know about the carbon cycle?
Why is it important that if they're living organisms are carbon-based? Why does that matter? I know from physical science last year that carbon is an element, but I don't know why that relates to our biology class. I need to know that.
Alright guys, so now that we've had a few minutes to work on those first two columns of our KWL chart, we are going to be doing a close read of an article about the carbon cycle. So hopefully this article will help you guys answer some of those questions that you have about the carbon cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this out to you guys. So how we're going to read this article is you're going to use your pen or pencil and you're going to, as you read it, circle any words you're unfamiliar with. So if there's any words where you don't really know what they mean, you're going to circle them. Alright, and then each of you also have a highlighter. You're going to use your highlighter to highlight any scientific vocabulary. So anything that you think sounds scientific or like it might be in a textbook as vocabulary or scientific knowledge, you can highlight those words. Alright, and then the last thing you're going to do while you're reading this article is write down any questions you have while you're reading in the margins. So anything that you think about and you want answered while you're reading, you're going to jot it down. And at the end, you can write those down in your want to know column of your KWL. So as you're reading, jot it down in the margins, any questions that you have, highlight any scientific vocabulary or terms, and circle any unfamiliar words. So to get us started, let's go through just the title together so we kind of understand what's going on. So what's our title of our article?
The carbon cycle.
Carbon cycle. All right, any words in that title we're unfamiliar with? No? Okay, that's great. All right, what about, do we think any of those words are scientific vocabulary?
Carbon.
Carbon, that's a great one. So let's go ahead and highlight carbon. All right, so based off of just our title of the carbon cycle, what are some questions we could generate based off just the title alone?
What is carbon?
What is carbon? That's a great one. So let's jot that one down in our margins. Lisa, do you have any ideas, any questions that you thought of based off just the title?
Well, with the word cycle, it should probably have steps, so I'd like to know how many.
How many steps? Okay, so how many steps might there be in the carbon cycle? All right, that was a great start. So I want you to take the next couple of minutes, work together, and I want you to go ahead and read through your article and follow those same steps. We're circling unfamiliar words, we're highlighting scientific terms, and we're writing questions in the margins. And I'm going to jot down those instructions on the board for you guys in case you need to refer back to them. So they'll be up here, and you guys can work together, read together, and find your questions together.
I highlighted atoms too because I know that that's a scientific word.
I highlighted recycle. And living and non-living, because we discussed that in an earlier unit when we did biotic and abiotic factors.
I circled biogeochemical cycle because I was unfamiliar with what that was.
Yeah, I've not heard of that before. And I had a question. I highlighted carbon and nitrogen cycles, because I know those are elements again. But my question is, how do they work together? I'm going to add that to my KWL.
I know that photosynthesis is a scientific word, it's in the third paragraph.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm gonna check in on you guys. How are we doing so far? What do we think about the article?
Some of the words we have picked up from other science classes, or that we just know they're science words.
Okay.
And then there's, we don't know about biogeochemical cycle. That's
Okay.
a new word. And we had a question of the carbon and nitrogen cycles are listed as the most common. So we wondered if they work together somehow.
Okay, great. Those are great questions. With some of the unfamiliar words you found, do you think that the article helped you kind of figure out what those words meant, or not exactly in this article?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay, great. All right, guys, now that we've had time to go through our article, we're going to play a game with the carbon cycle. So what we're going to do is I have some data record sheets for you guys that we're going to pretend that we are a carbon atom. So we are a molecule of carbon, and we're going to go through the carbon cycle ourselves. So in your data sheet, you've got your station that you start at, what happened in that station, and where you went next. So I'm going to model it for you guys so you know what to do. So everyone's going to start in the atmosphere. So we're all pretending that we are a carbon molecule in the atmosphere. So on my data record sheet, I would write that I started in the atmosphere. Then I would roll my dice. I got a 3. Number 3, the instructions tell me to stay in the atmosphere. Much of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere moves through the atmosphere. So for what happened, I would write stay in the atmosphere. My destination is the atmosphere. So even if your instructions tell you to stay in the same spot, you still write it on your record sheet. So then let's say I rolled again, and this time I roll a 2. So for 2, it tells me go to the plant. You are used by a plant in photosynthesis. So I start in the atmosphere, I move to the plant, my destination is a plant. So then I would find the plant card, and I would go there and roll my dice there. And it's going to give me new instructions to go different places or to stay in the plant. So on your data record sheet, you've got 10 lines. So I want you to go through this until you've completed all 10 lines and you've gone to 10 different stops in your carbon cycle. All right, any questions? We've got it? All right, great. Here's your record sheets. We're going to start in the atmosphere.
So I rolled 4.
I dropped mine. I got it. I rolled a 6.
I have to stay in the atmosphere.
I get to go to a plant. I'm going to be used in photosynthesis. See you later.
Yep. 5.
Now I'm going to an animal.
I get to go to the ocean.
What are you doing in your animal?
There I'm going to be leaves and berries, and they're going to eat me.
Oh, okay.
I get to stay in the surface ocean.
6. Now I go back to the atmosphere.
3. I get to go to the deep ocean. Stay in the deep ocean. Now I get to go to the animal.
All right, guys, so now that we've had time to go through our carbon cycle game, how about we come back to our seats? All right, so as we went through the carbon cycle, raise your hand if you stayed in the same place 2 times in a row. Awesome. Did anybody go back to somewhere they had already been before they went to other places? What did you go back to?
I had to go back to the atmosphere after the animals ate me because then they breathed me out.
Okay, great. So, what do those things tell us about the carbon cycle?
That sometimes it can repeat steps.
Sometimes you can repeat steps, okay. What about staying places longer times than others? What does that tell us?
every station or every place that it goes isn't an even amount of time.
Great, yeah, exactly. So when a carbon molecule is going through the carbon cycle, it doesn't always spend the same amount of time in the ocean as it does the plant, as it does the atmosphere. All of those can be different amounts of time. So, based off of what you learned going through the carbon cycle game and reading your article about the carbon cycle, I want you to go ahead and fill out the learned column of your KWL. These can be things you learned in the article, in our discussion, or things you learned in the carbon cycle game. Awesome. It looks like you guys have a lot of things you learned today about the carbon cycle. Do you guys want to share anything that you wrote down in your learn column?
I said that I learned that both plants and animals use carbon.
Great. That's a great one.
And I learned that they use them for different processes. For plants for photosynthesis, and then animals eat those plants, and then they breathe them out.
That's awesome. Did we get some of our questions answered? Anybody get a question answered? Go ahead, you, Lisa. What was your question?
My question was, why is carbon important in biology? So I learned that plants have to use it for photosynthesis to make their food.
Great.
And then animals eat that food, but then they breathe it back out.
Exactly. That's perfect. What about you, Scott? Did you get any of your questions answered?
For the amount of time that the carbon stays in the cycle, I learned that it doesn't stay in each part for the same length of time.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to take everything that we've learned today and we're going to make our own model of the carbon cycle. So kind of like the model that was on the front of your article, we're going to make our very own. So you can go ahead and flip over your KWLs and you can make your own models together. Got some markers for you guys. And you're going to draw your own picture of the carbon cycle.
Where do you think we should start?
I think we should start in the atmosphere since that's where we started in the game.
Okay.
Where do you think we should end up next?
I stayed there twice, and then I went to a plant. Where did you go?
I ended up in the ocean.
Okay, so we need to put plants and the ocean on there. I'm going to do my plant ingredient. And I went from the atmosphere to the plant. And you went from the atmosphere to the ocean?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, it looks like we are finishing up our models. You guys did such a great job today with that, and I hope you learned a lot about the carbon cycle. As soon as you're done, you can go ahead and turn those in to me, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon.